Hi everyone, my name is Britt Gergen. I already forgot the questions. Oh my God. So,
Major, first job, what you
okay, I was
do.
just so excited. My major, oh my gosh, was biological engineering, and I minored in German studies. My first job out of school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was kind of like, anyone please give me a job. So I ended up doing a sales consultant job at Oracle for about 2 years. They had just launched a new like early talent program at that time. It was the first time they had ever done it. So I met a lot of really great friends there and had a good time. Now, interestingly, I do product marketing here at Handshake. So I help communicate all of the great changes that we build in our product to our customers.
Awesome. And Monet, same questions for you. Maybe your major, your first job, and what you do today at Handshake.
Sure. Monet Williams, she, her, and they, them pronouns. Way back when I double majored in psychology and African American studies. Super cool stuff. Had no idea what I would do after. My first job was Taco Bell, which I still love today. My first job out of college was working for the Red Sox. So I transitioned from being an intern there and they gave me a full-time offer, which was great. And today I'm our Chief Impact Officer at Handshake. So, really trying to bring to life our mission of democratizing access to opportunity and inclusion, both internally for us at Handshake, but also with all of our employer partners as they think about hiring all of you. Excited to be here.
Amazing. I have to ask, have you tried the Cheez-It collaboration, the giant Cheez-It at Taco Bell?
I haven't yet,
Oh
but
my
I
God.
will add it to my to-do list.
Please, because I'm dying to hear what you think about it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your intros. Britt, I'm going to ask you to sit tight. We'll get into your kind of product tips shortly. But Monet, I'm excited. I'm actually going to remove your spotlight for now, Britt, so that Monet and I can chat live here. So prior to Handshake, you mentioned that you've worked in a variety of industries, from professional sports to, now at Handshake, you're in tech, and you've grown from intern up to the C-suite. Ahead, I'd love to get into some advice that you have for things that everyone here can know and do during their summer, whether they're in an internship, working part-time, or simply wanting to make the most of their break between terms. And I think that we can start maybe with some background on you. You mentioned that you started as an intern and were converted into a full-time role. Can you talk about maybe some of the things that made you successful as an intern and have led to opportunities for growth later on in your career?
Sure. So was very excited to get the internship. I was already graduated. So as a senior, I had an internship that summer and I didn't think that it would necessarily lead to a full-time job. So it just was a cool next thing for me to do. And while I was there, I just raised my hand for lots of projects. Also, I probably finished things much faster than they thought I would, but I let that be known instead of just like hanging out and surfing the internet. And so I had a chance to join a lot of meetings that I wouldn't have otherwise joined. I did a lot of reading so that I could like find things that I thought people I was working with would find interesting or helpful, because as an intern, you generally have more time than some of the other folks that you're working with. And then I also looked for new cool things that we might want to try as a company, and I would look for the right opportunity to bring those up. So it was a mix of making sure I did all the things folks asked me to do, but also looking for those additional opportunities, even when they were the unfun like types of things to do that I thought I could still learn something from. But I think the best piece of advice I got, what I try to follow now, is make yourself easy to mentor and give feedback to. And not that you need to shrink or like not be yourself, but give opportunities for people to give you feedback so that you ask for that directly, or you say, hey, I produced this thing. What did you think about it? Could it have been more clear? But really offering people an easy way to give you that kind of feedback makes it, I think, better for you because you get more input and feedback, but also better for them because they see that you're taking it and they'll want to provide more for you as well.
Awesome. That's great advice. And I think the easier you make it for people to help you, the more help you'll receive, right? And to your point about kind of volunteering for all sorts of projects and opportunities to grow, even the ones that were less fun. I think that those less fun projects, when you step up to the plate and you show that you're really willing to learn and grow there, that's when people really take notice and want to make sure that they're supporting you in your career journey. So thank you so much. So I have done a ton of student events and I've talked to a lot of students and recent grads. And some of the questions that I get the most often, I would say, are around networking and how that pertains to career growth. I know we have folks who are joining today who are, in internships, working part-time, doing summer school, taking the summer off. So I'd love to talk about networking opportunities kind of within those different segments. So as I mentioned before, summer doesn't have to be a wash when it comes to your professional development. And there's always an opportunity for building your network and growing in your career during the summer. Monet, when it comes to folks who are in internships this summer, how can they focus on networking?
I think having a good set of questions you want to ask people and not just the standard ones that everyone asks, because you want it to feel more mutual. And so if you make this an interesting conversation where you're bringing something to it, but you're also asking for something in return in terms of advice or feedback, ways to think about working at that company, I think people will enjoy it more likely, and they're more likely to keep coming back. So have good questions. And so I think too broad is probably what do I have to do to be successful here? Probably too broad, but hey, this is the kind of role I'm thinking about. What do people who do those types of roles do to be prepared, or who do they work with? What are the types of projects? And showing some curiosity and ability to do some of that legwork before the conversation. And then I always try to come with something that I think that person might find interesting too, either just from a connection standpoint or something that might be valuable. So, hey, I saw this article in this business magazine that I thought you might find interesting too. Could be a conversation for us to talk about it, but also could just be a leave behind for this person who may not have had time or saw the thing earlier. And then I think networking sounds like scary, but I would look for all opportunities just to have conversations with people as you're going. So it could just be that you're having lunch in the break room one day and someone pops in and they say, how are things going? And you just say, great. Or you say, oh, I'm working on this really awesome thing. Would love to hear what you're working on, and using those as opportunities to have broader and deeper conversations with more people too.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I love, as a handshaker, I've been here for almost 5 years now. My favorite thing that the interns in our intern class have done for me is reach out when they're doing something completely unrelated. Say they're a software engineering intern, but I'm on the marketing team and they're interested in what I do. And they'll reach out and set up like informational coffee chats that are just like 15-minute Zooms where we can, hop on and chat. And they have those questions prepared where I can kind of share a little bit about my background and learn more about them. I think it's a really great way to kind of build your network when you're in seat in an internship.
I think
Um,
also, Brenton,
yeah,
not being shy about like telling people what you think they do well. I mean,
sure.
lots of people don't get that kind of feedback. So I really loved how you opened that meeting. I'd love to hear how you practice doing public speaking, or those types of opportunities are a way to, one, show your appreciation, but also learn more about something that you might want to get better at yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And for folks who aren't in internships, I know that we both mentioned that, or maybe I didn't mention, but I know it in my brain, that we both worked kind of part-time jobs during summer, throughout college, in food service, and maybe less directly related to the things we're doing now, but still in jobs for the summer. How do you think about opportunities for networking in environments like that? Do you think there are ways to make the most of your summer while you're in a part-time job that might not necessarily apples to apples apply to the career that you want to build later on?
I think having your elevator pitch down, which is, I think, one of the great things to think about preparing over the summer, regardless of what you're doing, but telling people what you want to do. So maybe this is what you're doing now, and this is like a great path to get there, but what is your aspiration and what are you working towards in your coursework? And also just being really careful not to make that job seem like it's beneath you, or it is just this like temporary thing, because it is some people's like livelihoods. And so just being thoughtful in how you have some of those conversations, I think, as well. And then depending on the type of job, you're also going to meet a lot of customers. And so how do you use those opportunities just to meet more people, be kind, be curious, and other opportunities might come up that way. The first summer internship I ever had, my first year of college, actually was that. Like, I happened to mention to somebody who came into the store that I was like thinking about what I was going to do next, and they connected me to this company that was still looking for a summer intern. And so I actually had a part-time job and a summer internship that year because I was willing to have that conversation.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think it's a really great opportunity to build relationships with your peers and managers. That's something that has kind of followed me throughout my career from, when I was a barista to when I was working in a used clothing store to when I was at Sonic Drive-In and then up into, now that I'm at Handshake, I really try to invest on building relationships across the board because you never know who could be a great referral or recommendation in the future. And I think it's just really important to keep an open mind. Awesome. And then for those who maybe aren't necessarily in a job or an internship over the course of the summer, do you have any recommendations for how to develop during maybe summer school or just, taking some downtime during the summer season?
I think it's a great time to reflect on all the good stuff you've done and how you might translate that for the next opportunity that you're looking for. So, creating a cheat sheet for yourself, using that as an opportunity to create a couple versions of your resume that are relevant for different opportunities you might want to apply to. Also, thinking about other training or courses you might want to do, highlighting projects you might be working on, that would be great opportunities to show off what you're doing. And then I think start to get your feet wet on Handshake and other platforms so that you can show off your brand and like what you want to do and the things that you're interested in, and learn more about those opportunities as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think summer is a great time to kind of like hit the pause button and think about all the things that you did the year before, all the things that you're planning to do the year ahead. I like to call it, turning your transcript into talking points, but like looking at the courses that you took over the past year and thinking about, what types of things you upskilled in, key projects, important courses, relevant certifications that you can add to your resume and your Handshake profile, to your point. And we'll get into a little bit of that like tactically when we get to Brit's section later. But I also wanted to chat through, summertime. I think oftentimes when we leave campus or when we pause our classes, we think that the rest of school pauses too, but career services is like working. They're there, they're ready to help. And so I want to call out that just because it's summer doesn't mean that your school's resources are on pause. Most of those career centers on college campuses are open and available for appointments year round. Monet, do you have any recommendations for students when it comes to getting cozy with career services at their school?
I would not necessarily recommend having the mindset that I had. I was very paranoid about not finding a job when I graduated. So very early on, I tried to cozy up to career services. But I love your point about the summer because it's so much easier to get time with folks. And people are very invested in helping you, especially people who are taking the extra steps to really work on their resumes or what they want to be able to look for in a job at that stage. So I would reach out quickly, make an appointment. I would even ask them, what types of things do people come to you for? You may not know what's available, but there might be some things that are available there that could be really helpful to you beyond your own knowledge. And so using that opportunity to meet people, also asking other folks how they've used the Career Center at your respective institution. Maybe they have some good tips for you to think about as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I've seen some really great posts from career centers on the Handshake feed, all about the kind of resources that they offer in their specific offices. There are some career centers that have, headshot photo booths where you can get a new professional headshot to add to your profile. They do one-on-one career coaching and mock interviews. So, it's a really great resource to think about if you're still in school or if you're an alumni and you have access to your alumni network. If you're an alumni or alumni is plural, but I won't get into the nuance there. But that's really great advice, and we're going to actually talk through how to make an appointment with career services on Handshake in Brit's section as well. But just to wrap up, I'd love to talk about how your summertime activities can lead to a more successful job search during the fall. Monet, I know you mentioned that nailing your elevator pitch and kind of working through that now, thinking about your resume and all of that before you start school in the fall when recruitment season is in full swing is a great idea. Can you talk maybe about the common industries that recruit during fall and things that you can do to make you feel more confident in your application by August?
Sure. Tech, finance, consulting, often consumer packaged goods are all industries that are doing a lot of their recruiting much earlier in the year. And so if you wait till you get back to campus, you might feel a bit behind. You're starting your new classes, you're of course doing some social stuff, and it's much easier to be focused on this in the summer when this might be the only thing or one of few things that you're thinking about. And I think it also just gives you a head start. So you'll know like what your plan of attack is when these organizations do start recruiting, and you might be able to have, your short list of places that you really want to reach out to, or even be able to meet some of those people in advance through Handshake or some events through your school, that kind of thing. So I think it's a really helpful time to understand the timelines for the types of jobs that you're interested in, so that you're not surprised by that when you get back and you have a chance to make any changes to your approach that you want to make.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you so much. I feel like these were such important things to keep in mind, and you're such a great example of how the moves you make early on in your job and internship journey can help set the stage for the rest of your career. Awesome. And so I'm gonna invite Britt back to the stage. Monet, I'll call back on you during our Q&A section because there are some questions for you that have rolled in. But for now, I will remove your spotlight. And Britt, I'm gonna add yours. Welcome to the virtual stage.
What a power trip you're having here.
I'm mad with power with all of these different buttons I can press. Amazing. So now I want to talk about how to take the best advantage of Handshake this summer to do everything from building your personal brand and networking, like we talked about with Monet, to standing out to employers who are searching for candidates early on in their career on Handshake. And then after that demo, we will open the floor for some of your questions. So again, be sure to add those to the Q&A sections as we go. Britt, let's get into some Handshake specifics. Britt is a Handshake product pro who knows the ins and outs of the entire platform probably better than anyone, including all of the easiest things that you can do to get the most out of your experience this summer and build your personal brand with Handshake. So today we're going to walk through the essentials, and please don't sleep on these tips. They're very important, and this is like the next 10 minutes, if you do these things, you will walk away with your Handshake profile in a great place for you to basically hit the ground running in the fall. So with that, Britt, I'll hand it over to you to kick off a little demo. Maybe we can
Awesome.
start with the essentials and the new stuff.
Let's do it. Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. Britt again. I'm going to share my screen. So as Brenton and Monet have been saying, summer is a great time to get into Handshake and start getting acclimated or refresh your profile in advance of the fall. Maybe you're even able to start having some recruiting conversations now as well. So I want to go through some of the key aspects of your profile, maybe touch on a couple of things you didn't know about before, and talk about why they are so important to keep up to date. So let's start on the profile itself. And as you might notice, we are in the process of rolling out a new profile layout for everybody. You might not have it yet, but if you don't, you will have it very soon. This is what the new one looks like, and it's been redesigned to highlight some of the most important pieces of your profile up top. And the reason we did that is because recruiters actually look at your profile, and it's how they can understand what you bring to the table, and we surface it to them in a variety of ways throughout their recruiting process as well, so that you are highlighted to them. It's also really important to note that the information that you put into your profile helps Handshake learn about what you're looking for and make better recommendations for jobs and events as well. So just like with any other profile, there are the standard kind of set of things you can set up. And you should make it a part of your regular routine to update your profile. I would recommend at least once a semester or once a quarter, because you can do things like add skills and coursework that you might have just completed. But if you want to do it even more regularly, I think that's fantastic. So, I mean, we'll just go through the page, honestly. We did add a new banner, so there's a couple of options you can select from here. If you want to add a bit of color and pizzazz. Props to our brand design team for coming up with these. Very top, you can enter your name, your pronouns, your location. We also added the ability to include links. So if you have a personal website or a portfolio online, you can link that here, which is really cool. I'll add just a random one, so you can see what it looks like. Oh, that's not how that works. Sorry.
Love it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, okay. Yep, you gotta have
That's
that.
what it is.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. So now you can see that link coming up here. So great way to highlight, again, projects, personal website, portfolio. You can't see it here because I'm looking at my own profile, but if you're viewing the profile of a peer, another student, you'll also be able to follow them, which will come in handy in just a second. The last thing I want to call out is your settings. So if you jump into, click on your headshot in the upper right-hand corner and go to settings, there are a couple of additional things you can set up here. Namely, you can control your privacy. So if you have your profile set to community, that means that employers are able to find you and your peers are able to find you as well. They can reach out to you in message, they can view your profile, etc. If you're just visible to employers, that means that your peers won't be able to find you, but employers will. And you can also set your profile to private if you prefer to not be able to be found in Handshake. I also wanted to call out your notification preferences. This page is a bit of an eye chart, but if you want to change where or whether you are receiving certain notifications about key things in Handshake, this is a really helpful page to check out because you can toggle things on and off from here as well. So if you'd like to, not receive a notification for something, you're able to do that as well. Okay. Another really important thing to fill out as a part of, I guess, like preparing for the fall, both helping employers who have opportunities that are going to be relevant to you find you, and also to help Handshake recommend relevant jobs to you, is to fill out your career interests. So that's also accessible by clicking on your headshot in the upper right-hand corner and going to career interests. So this is a bit of a survey that allows you to indicate some information about where you might be interested in going with your career. And if you don't know yet, it's totally fine. You can fill out this form speculatively and then come back and edit it later. And also, Handshake is not only going to show you jobs that adhere strictly to these requirements. We will expand beyond it a little bit in a reasonable way to help you kind of discover things you might not have thought of before. But this is still a really great way to help us hit the ground running and share great recommendations with you. So you'll answer questions like, what type of job are you looking for? So maybe you are a first-year student and you're actually just looking for a part-time gig right now, and those exist on Handshake. You can select part-time. Maybe you're looking for your internship or a full-time job. You can indicate that here as well. You can also indicate multiple. How can Handshake help you? Let us know what you're looking for right now. What options are you considering after graduation? And then moving through, you can start indicating the types of jobs you want to work in, the cities you're interested in, the industries that are interesting to you, and when you expect to graduate. So all of this information will factor into your job recommendations moving forward. And then again, employers can also use this information in aggregate to target candidates with the right profile for their opportunities. So this can also lead to you receiving messages.
That's great. And I want to reiterate, because I know, Britt, you mentioned it before, but this is editable at any time. So like, we understand that your career plans are going to change inevitably over the course of the time that you're in school or potentially after graduation. This should be fluid and, evolve as your career plans do. So definitely like keep this page handy. And of course, we're recording this session as well in case you want to revisit this recording later to make sure that you're taking all of these steps.
Yep, definitely agree, Brenton. I think it's a great idea to continuously update these. One other thing I'll note, when it comes to recommending jobs, the other thing you can do to make your job recommendations more honed is to just search for jobs on Handshake. So we are not just looking at the career interests that you share with us, but we're also looking at the types of jobs that you interact with, so that we know if you look at a marketing job, you might be interested in other marketing jobs. So that type of implicit information is also listened to by Handshake, and we're able to use that to make good recommendations too. So you don't have to worry that if you haven't been updating your interests so far, that your recommendations are going to be way off, but by updating them, you're giving us even more input to work off of to refine your recommendations even more. Now, everything we've gone through today is also, and everything we're going to talk about subsequently, is in the Handshake app. So I highly, highly recommend that everybody download the Handshake app so you don't miss anything while you're on the go. And you'll also be able to use the mobile app as well as the web app to access Handshake's new content and community features, which have rolled out really recently from Anywhere. And so this is a whole new slate of Handshake tools. They are available to you now. So as of today, every student and grad on Handshake has the ability to post content, leave comments, and follow each other whose content interests you. And you'll see content created especially for Handshake feed from employers, your school, and from students like you. But as I just mentioned, you can create your own content to help build your personal brand and establish yourself as a voice in the field. So let me show you how to do that. You might have noticed already, eagle eyes will have spotted that there is a little posts tab here. So if you click on posts, that will take you into the post composer, which is where you'll be able to create a post. It works just the way you would expect it to. You can type text, you can include links, you can add a video. You can also change the visibility. So you can choose to either post to everybody on the Handshake network, or if you want to, say, promote an event happening at your school, you can choose just to target students at your school, and that will keep the post scoped. Once you post, everything that you specifically have posted is going to show up here in a timeline. And if you go and view another student's profile, you'll be able to see the full history of what they've posted as well. So let's go and see where this is actually going to live, though, because this is just your posts on your profile. If you head over to the feed tab, this is where you'll see other people's content coming together. And it's not just text and video posts that live in the feed today. You'll also be able to see recommended jobs and events and resources from your Career Center as well. So you'll notice at the top, this is also another place where you can compose a post if you would like. But you can also just scroll to see what you've got. So as you can see, we've got a couple of jobs and events. And if I keep scrolling, we can hit some video content as well. And if you see something you're interested in watching, you can jump into full screen mode. So the videos that are being created, as I mentioned earlier, are coming from employers. So you might hear interview tips or learn about what a day in the life looks like working in a particular company. You also might see recommendations from your Career Center on how to format your resume. And you might also see tips from your peers or from young alumni giving you information on how to network. So there's going to be a wide breadth of career-related content here, and should all be really helpful in helping you both figure out what direction you want to go in your career, and then also do all of the little things like interviewing and applying and building your resume that you need in order to get there. As I mentioned earlier, you can also, of course, as you would expect, like things and comment. So you'll be able to get in touch with posters directly as well. And as I mentioned before, if you click through on a poster's name, you'll also see the option to follow them, so you can see more of their content in your feed, and you can message them as well, in addition to view all of their old posts and check out their
Here's how you can get a job at a top tech company.
Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you, Britt.
Yeah.
I would love, you talked a lot about how to show up well on your new refreshed Handshake profile. And I think that that's a really great opportunity, to your point about adding links and adding content, personalizing to show who you are besides kind of the basic bullet points on your resume, right?
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about, how you can update that profile to showcase your coursework and your extracurriculars and things that might be of interest to employers as they're thinking about who you are kind of holistically as a candidate?
Absolutely. Yeah, we kind of stuck around the top, so let's move through the bottom, or the rest of it, honestly. So yes, as Brenton is alluding to, the profile really lets you show off the full scope of your experience. And if you don't have like true professional experience yet, don't worry. Because Handshake is a place for college students, that is taken into account in the way we have developed this profile, so that you will be able to highlight all of the great experience that you have already or might not know you already had, and stand out to potential employers. So you can start off with a summary, a little mission statement or an elevator pitch, as Monet was hinting at earlier, giving folks an idea of who you are and what you're interested in. We also front and center highlight your skills. So you can add as many skills as you would like here, and these, again, help us recommend jobs and help employers connect with you. And these are a great way to highlight the tangible outcomes of the coursework you're doing if you haven't yet had an actual professional opportunity. And I would say that no skill is too small. And if you think that everyone has Excel on their profile, that just means it's totally fine if you add it on your profile, because we all have Excel skills, don't we? So again, these are a great way to call out the things that you're learning or that you're gaining from your coursework, even if you don't have professional experience yet. Of course, if you've had a job or an internship, you can also include it here. And that, I would say, should include part-time opportunities or summer jobs. If you've worked as a camp counselor, You have managed unruly groups of people, and there are skills to be gleaned from that, and employers will appreciate it. So don't feel like a past work experience that you've had is too small to highlight here. If you keep scrolling down, your education is likely filled out by your school, so that should be all set, but you can go in and edit it, add your GPA if you like. You do not have to. You can also hide your GPA if you prefer. And then continuing to go down, I mentioned earlier, you can use the skills section to highlight what you've learned from your courses. You can highlight your courses too. So this is another open text field where you can add in your courses, you can add a course code, and you can also indicate if you were a TA as a little bit more of like a leadership type of experience signal.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then last three here, organizations, projects, and languages. Language was just added very recently. So if you haven't taken a look at your profile and you happen to be fluent in Spanish, you can now indicate that a little bit more explicitly on your profile, and employers are going to have the ability to learn that about you as they're looking at your profile and potentially looking to send you a message as well. So it's a great way to highlight that information. I mentioned projects at the top. You can link off to them if they're hosted online. But you can also just include a full description of a project if you'd like to highlight the full details on Handshake in your profile. This is great if, say, you don't have a website stood up, but you do have like the project saved in a Google Drive, and you can include the link here, and you want to add a little description. Cool.
Amazing. And I know that there are some areas, Britt, that I'm hoping maybe you can show us where you can choose to self-identify specific areas. When you're a veteran, if you want to identify your gender identity or your race, I think that that's a really great area to talk through.
Absolutely. So this is, oh my goodness, we're testing me. Oh, shoot. Oh,
Sorry,
guys, this is
one
embarrassing.
and we can always come back to it too
Let's
during
come
the
back to it.
Okay.
Let's move on to talking about Career Center, accessing your Career Center. So, Brenton mentioned earlier that your Career Center is a really great way to get additional advice on your career search, and they are accessible through Handshake. So, if we jump over to the home page, we'll be able to access your Career Center. Oh my goodness, it's gone away. You know what, guys? Something is off with my profile that I am showing here, and I think that's why I couldn't find that earlier.
Oh no.
Let me switch really quickly. Give me 1 second.
Perfect. Thank you.
Technical difficulties, what a thrill.
And in the meantime, I'm going to share a link in the chat that is all about self-identification on Handshake that has some kind of directions for where you can do that.
Perfect. Just give me 1 sec. Oh.
In the meantime, I want to call out in the chat, there are several future workshops that you can register for that focus on specifics around personal brand building. Would love to see those of you who are here today for those upcoming sessions where we will have content challenges that will make you eligible for receiving a Handshake brand building certificate if you participate. So we'll have prompts and you can create content using the post composer that Britt shared, and you can get yourself out there on Handshake to stand out to employers.
Excellent. Okay.
Britt,
I've
we
got
ready?
this. Oh, we're switching to another account. Thanks for bearing with us, folks. Okay, so this is the old profile, but the ability to self-identify is located in personal information. So here you can add your hometown, you can add your pronouns, and you can also choose to identify your gender and race or ethnicity. It is not at all required, but you can choose to share that here as well. Cool. Okay, now good to move on to talking to your Career Center. Let's do it.
Perfect.
So As I mentioned, or as I was trying to mention, but my profile that I was demoing in was a little bit strange. You can access your Career Center in a variety of ways. So if you're on the homepage, you'll see a link in this gray bar at the top to access it. It's also over on the left-hand panel. So if we jump there, you'll be able to see all of your Career Center resources. So this includes the ability to check out any resource articles that they've created, any surveys that they're running. And for this particular institution, this is my alma mater. They're not offering appointments through Handshake, but you would see an appointments button here as well that would allow you to sign up for an advising appointment with your Career Center. And typically, if you're not familiar, the Career Center appointments will allow you to get career guidance, resume feedback, and they might even share specific resources with you or help you get connected to potential employers. I also want to touch on job search. So as I mentioned, when it comes to honing your recommended jobs, it can be a really good idea to just start poking around and saving stuff that looks interesting to you, because Handshake is monitoring what you click on and is able to make better recommendations based on the activity you're doing. So it's always a good idea to invest a little bit of time in looking. Obviously, as I mentioned, we are going to take your career interests and your profile into account, but you can supplement that by showing us what you're interested in. Now, on job search itself, the jobs that show up by default are actually the 50 most relevant jobs we have to recommend for you based on what we know about you right now. So you honestly can just start scrolling through them and see what you like. You don't have to apply any keywords or filters in order to start finding relevant jobs. That said, if you're looking for something very specific, you can use them. There are a variety of filters across the top here. You can click into the All Filters menu to see every single one of them. But a couple that I will call out. This collections filter allows you to filter for jobs from employers that your school is highlighting for you. It's often because they have a close relationship with the employer, or the employer does a lot of recruiting and hiring at your school. So that's a great way to find employers that are highly engaged on campus. You can also filter for opportunities that are on-site, remote, or hybrid. So if that is important to you, you'll be able to do that. And another one that's a little bit more hidden but important for international students is you are able to filter for jobs that do or do not require work authorization. So an important one to call out there if you need to use that filter. It is in the All Filters menu. If you are looking at a job and you see an employer that you think is really interesting, you can click through to view their profile. And you'll be able here to follow them. So that's going to, if they're posting content on the feed, which we looked at just a moment ago, you'll be able to start seeing more of their content. But importantly, we will also send you an email if they post an event or a relevant job for you. So it's a great way to stay in the loop when it comes to staying connected with employers that are of interest. And I also want to show off the events tab. So another great thing to keep an eye on, especially going into the fall when events will really pick up, is coming over here to look for opportunities to connect live or virtually with employers that you're interested in. So we recommend signing up for a lot of events in the fall. It's a great opportunity to get in front of employers. Your Career Center might also host workshops similar to their appointments, where you'll be able to work on your resume or do some speed networking just to get comfortable. So a lot of great opportunities to do some of that in-person work as well. And just like with jobs, you're able to filter based on particular categories. If you just want to find career fairs or networking opportunities, it's very easy to do that. You can also look for events from particular employers if that's of interest. And if you only want to look for virtual events, you can do that as well. Okay, now, how am I doing, Brenton, on time?
You're doing great. I would love to pivot to our audience Q&A in just a couple of minutes, but I think you
Okay.
can walk through a little bit more about, quick apply and reviews and documents that you can upload, but you're doing great.
Let's do it. Okay. Let's take the words right out of Brenton's mouth and talk about documents. So, as you all know, a lot of jobs require you to apply with a resume, and you can upload and manage your resumes in Handshake by clicking on your name in the upper right-hand corner and selecting My Documents. You'll be able to upload your resume from your computer, and it's important to note you can have multiple resumes uploaded here. So if you create bespoke resumes for particular opportunities, They can all live in Handshake. And you can designate one of them as the public one that you want visible on your profile. So if a random employer happens to visit your profile and sees it, that's the resume that they will have, but you'll be able to have like a full slate of other ones in your back pocket so that it's really easy to apply later. You can also, of course, upload cover letters, transcripts here as well, so it can all be managed from one place. Now, the reason it's good to have all of your different resumes uploaded really quickly is because that you will, if you're scrolling through Handshake long enough, you might find a job that is labeled as quick apply. We'll see if I can find one. But if I can't, I will just say that quick apply means that you can apply in like 2 clicks. Essentially, we will just indicate the resume that you've selected as your primary. You'll be able to change it really quickly, and you can submit it immediately. So those jobs are cool because it's just that much easier to apply for them. You can blast it off using the pre-work you've done in Handshake. One final thing I want to call out. I mentioned earlier that employers are able to reach out to you proactively, and they're often going to do that based on your profile or based on your career interests. All of those messages coming from employers are going to show up in your inbox. You'll also get an email notification about them. So if you're not in here, don't worry, you won't miss them. But from the inbox, you'll be able to see the message. Often employers are going to be reaching out to encourage you to apply for a job or register for an event. But they could also be reaching out to see if you'd like to connect for an interview or for an informational session. So definitely read them, and you have the ability to reply as well. So if you want to strike up a conversation with a recruiter, you're able to do that here. And we find that employers are, if they're sending messages, they are usually highly responsive on Handshake. So it's a great way to get your foot in the door and make a connection. And with that, Brenton, I think we're good to switch over to Q&A.
Perfect. And we have gotten a lot of questions. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight Monet as well, because there are some for all of us. And just to get ahead of it, you won't see any questions that are submitted except for your own until we mark them as answered. So please don't think we're ignoring you. We've gotten a lot of questions that have come in, and we will try to get to as many as we can before we wrap today. And with that, I would love to hop in and start asking a couple of these. I think there is a kind of a common thread. I'm gonna do my best to voice over a couple of questions that talk about the same thing. But both Britt and Monet, when it comes to standing out to employers on Handshake, are there any things that you think that employers are looking for the most when they're kind of analyzing candidates who might be earlier on in their careers, and maybe any way to kind of demonstrate your best abilities, even if you haven't necessarily had a professional experience yet? Maybe Monet, I can ask you with broad strokes about, somebody who's a little bit more senior in your career, who's been involved in hiring decisions. When you're thinking about candidates and how they can stand out to you, can you talk about what really jumps out at you on somebody's profile or their resume?
Yeah, I think especially for someone who's earlier on in their career, really being clear on what your skills and experiences are and trying to make that really specific. So don't bury the lead. Like if you know that you've like learned a particular coding language, it should be there very specifically and very cleanly. And so really doing the extra work to understand what those skills are that you can highlight, I think really goes a long way.
Awesome. And Britt, when it comes to the actual Handshake profile itself, is there anything that we know about things that employers lean on really heavily when it comes to kind of analyzing a candidate on Handshake?
Totally. So definitely agree with Monet. I think highlighting your skills on your profile, they are high up on that profile list for a reason, because they are highly utilized. But as I mentioned earlier, I think things like organizations, so clubs you're a part of, and projects are a nice way to like flesh out the experience that you've had and some of the skills that you've like learned along the way if you don't yet have a professional experience.
Amazing. Thank you. I'm going to tie together another thread that I'm seeing in a couple of questions here, which is connecting with folks who work at an employer. I know that Handshake is an interesting place because you can see posts from folks who might be in a role at an employer. We also obviously have recruiters from those employers who are on the Handshake network. Is there a way, Britt, from a product perspective, to find out which employers or jobs have recruiters that are available and open to be messaged? And then Monet, if you have any tips about like maybe how to kind of gain the confidence to reach out to somebody and initiate that conversation, that would be great.
Yeah, I can go first. So yes, the answer is yes. There are a couple of ways that you can find recruiters who are eager to be reached out to. First and foremost, on job postings themselves, recruiters have the ability to make themselves messageable. So you might be reading a job description and you'll see a little headshot at the bottom with a button to message that person. That means that the person who posted the job is open to fielding questions about it, and it's an offer essentially to have you reach out to them. So that's a great place to look for it. If you're viewing a company's profile page, we'll also usually highlight contacts there that you can reach out to. So that's another great opportunity. But I would say the most, like the top recommendation that I have is to go to the Handshake feed and look at who is posting there. So as we mentioned, employers, your peers, and your school are all going to be contributing content to the feed. And you have the ability to comment on posts. You can click through to view someone's profile and message them. And I think that people who are contributing content on that surface are going to be some of the most likely to engage of all, because they are proactively putting their ideas out there. So I think that's a great place to identify folks who are down to network.
Awesome. And Monet, when it comes to building the confidence to kind of have that conversation, reach out to somebody, do you have any tips there?
I love Britt's tip on looking for the folks who are already active. I think that's such a good idea. The other thing I would think about is trying to make your question or your reach out like easy to answer. So if you think about if you had to answer someone and it kind of requires this 3-paragraph answer on this is exactly what my career journey looks like, sometimes those questions can feel really daunting versus like, what is this initial conversation that you could have that's actually relatively easy for this person to respond to you? I think that helps, and then they can respond quickly. And then the other thing is where you can make connections to something that you've seen, a post that you've seen, or some news about the company, or something more specific about the role that you're interested in. I think just makes it, again, easier for that person to engage with you and want to reply. Sometimes those broad questions are very good, but hard to do in sort of written format. And so thinking about the right venue for that kind of question.
Yeah. Speaking of things being daunting, I have a question here that is very relatable to me, honestly, which is not going to lie, everything about applying for jobs and building my resume feels extremely overwhelming. So I end up procrastinating it, especially because of imposter syndrome. I have 1 semester left before graduation, and I haven't really done much in this area. Do you have any tips for getting started? I'll open that to the floor.
I feel this is me as well. I think try to find a small thing that can feel like a win and like do that and try to then find the next small thing. So the small thing could be like, what are your skills? It could be like, what is the right photo or what is the right like general resume that I need to have versus trying to say, I'm going to knock all of this stuff out in like one afternoon. I think that's when it feels like too daunting for me personally, but trying to break it apart into more bite-sized chunks, I think is very helpful.
I would also say if you have friends who are maybe a little bit further along in preparing things, at the risk of overwhelming yourself, I would say like if you ask them what their resume looks like or like what tool they use or something, I'm sure your friends and people around you have great tips on how you can get started, and seeing something that's completed might help you visualize what you need to make too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great advice. And Monet, my advice was going to be very similar to yours, which is, sitting down and being career ready in one sitting is really intimidating. And so I think that would be daunting to anyone. But having 5-minute things that you can do maybe every day over the course of a couple of weeks during the summer, update this part of my profile, take a stab at, the skills section of my resume, like have it be, maybe even post-it notes that have just like certain things that you need to do, but it helps with the executive dysfunction is what I call it for myself, of like not wanting to actually do the thing because it's so overwhelming. That has been really helpful for me. We are getting close to time, so I'm going to end with okay, I have 2 fun questions. One for Monet. What's your favorite Taco Bell order? Somebody's wondering about what you like to order there.
Ooh, this is really hard. Cheesy gordita crunch, a chalupa, and ideally an order of Senna Twist, which they don't have at all locations anymore, but it's still one of my favorites.
Love it. That's a solid
Brett,
order.
if I remember correctly, you are also a Taco Bell fan.
You do remember correctly. I am a Taco Bell fan. I love a cheesy gordita crunch and I love a Crunchwrap Supreme. And if anybody is in the Bay Area, go to the Taco Bell in Pacifica. It is right on the beach and it's one of the most magical places I've ever been in my life.
It's beautiful. It really is. I think people have gotten married there, which is really saying something about the
I
vibe
would. Yeah.
generally. Okay, and now to end on more of a serious question, but you both can answer. For folks who are thinking about their career journeys, I think it's sometimes hard to visualize yourself in a specific role. But we have a question from Crystal for both of you, which is, what is your favorite and least favorite part about your jobs? Maybe Monet, we can start with you and we can end with Britt.
Ooh, my favorite, I work with a lot of really smart people. So every day someone tells me something that I wouldn't have thought of myself. So just the opportunity to keep learning. Least favorite, probably email. Not my favorite thing to do, but there's a lot of it.
For sure. Britt, how about you?
Those are good answers. I definitely agree with those. I think one of my favorite things to do is present, even when I flub and have to pull up another profile to find out where the certain thing is. Still very thrilling and exciting to be talking to people live. So I really do like getting to do this. Um, Emails are definitely hard. I also I probably didn't come up with this quote. I definitely didn't. But the hardest thing in the world to create is a first draft. And as a marketer, having to write the first draft of an email or a blog post or anything is maybe the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Second draft, though, it's the best. Love it.
I love it. Those are great answers. Thank you both for your time today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can talk through our content challenge for this session today. And as a reminder, we're going to have a content challenge portion at the end of each of the workshops in this Handshake Build Your Brand series. And there are prizes that you can win, like swag boxes, Visa gift cards, and you'll be eligible for the Handshake Brand Building Certification if you participate in this and our following workshop sessions, content challenges. So be sure to look out for these at the end of each workshop. This is a content challenge that we would love for you to participate in. And this will help you build your personal brand on Handshake. I think part of the question that we answered right toward the end about feeling daunted by the job search, this is a really great way to kind of like rip off the band-aid of getting yourself out there on Handshake. So for this content challenge, please introduce yourself to the community. We want you to get onto the Handshake feed, get familiar with all the newest features, and then really like introduce yourself into the space. So share a video version of your elevator pitch, introduce yourself about who you are, what you're studying, your dream job, maybe any other bits and bobs that you want your fellow peers and employers to know about you. Posting on the Handshake feed, again, helps elevate you and makes you a little bit more visible to folks who are hiring and who are looking to build their networks on Handshake. So this is a really great opportunity for the first 10 people who post their introduction on the Handshake feed. We'll be looking out for those. We will be sending out some fun swag kits, so be on the lookout and be sure to get posting your video soon. We're so excited to see your posts, and as you begin to put yourself out there on Handshake, see you grow your visibility with employers and other students and alumni and more. I'm going to leave this up as we wrap up today. Thank you again for being here and for joining us. And please, everybody, everybody join me in thanking Britt and Monet for their wisdom today. It was such a fabulous experience. Thank you both for your expertise and your insights. If you all have a moment, also feel free to fill out our feedback survey in the chat so that Handshake can continue to bring you awesome events in the future. And we know what you want to hear about, what you want to learn. And you can follow us on Instagram at Join Handshake to get more awesome event announcements. And with that, we are wrapping for the day. You can find this recording on our Handshake blog and our YouTube channel shortly. We'll have it up by the end of the day. And we look forward to seeing you on the feed. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye. And I will wrap us here. Thank you. Have a good one.